So welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video, and today I wanted to talk about my experience buying one of the more iconic issues from the 1980s. And if you're a Batman fan, it could be like the most iconic issue of the 80s. And yeah, my experience was good, but did sort of end up in a little bit of an overpay. But you know, certainly lessons learned, and I can let you know about my experience. But yeah, last year I was lucky enough to pick up a copy of Batman the Dark Knight Returns #1. So this book, you're getting the first appearance of Carrie Kelly and the Frank Miller story and art as well. And if you sort of look up like the classic definition of a Bronze Age comic book, it sort of says Bronze Age books are from 1970 to 1986. And this book being written in 1986, this is kind of the first Copper Age, Modern Age book. And it's not just because like somebody decided it, just a lot of like the techniques for the art and the story and how they came together were very innovative at the time, and it influenced a lot of artists. You know, specifically an artist that I love, Todd McFarlane's kind of on the record as saying that Frank Miller, especially Batman the Dark Knight Returns, was a big influence on him. And yeah, so this issue just used a lot of like innovative art and everything like that. So that's sort of why this has become such an iconic Batman issue. Certainly for Batman in the 80s, it's kind of like this, and maybe Batman 357 are like the two most expensive issues. So that's sort of why this has become such a sought after book and a pretty expensive book as well. And we'll get into the prices a little bit later, but had a look at the CGC census, and out of all graded copies, 18% of all graded copies are 9.8s. So for an 80s book, that's a pretty favorable ratio. It's not like super rare. So for some context, Amazing Spider-Man 300, 6% of those are 9.8s. Whereas this is 18%, so it's not getting into like super rare territory, but still somewhat rare in the 9.8s, pretty hard to find. There are 513 of 9.8s on the census, and yeah, and this being the 9.8 white pages, some of those would be off white pages possibly. So yeah, you're getting kind of a 1 of 513 item, likely less because this is a 9.8 white pages. So yeah, a lot of reasons to want to invest in this comic book, certainly. You're getting like the first modern age comic, or what is sort of known as the first modern age comic. It literally like almost started the sort of Bronze Age, Copper Age distinction, I would say. And again, because so many modern artists were influenced by it. So a lot of reasons to want to invest in this book. And myself, just getting into CGC investing about 1 or 2 years ago. For some reason, this book was not a book when I was a kid that I really wanted, or it just never got on my radar as a kid. And I'm not really too sure exactly why, mostly just luck, I would say. Like, back then nobody told me about it, or my comic store probably didn't have it, and back before the internet, so it's not like the information was at hand, and me being like 8 or 9, there was just kind of certain things that grabbed my attention. This book wasn't one of them. So when I started collecting CGC books a couple years ago, just doing a little bit of research and realizing that, wow, this is like the first modern age comic, so many innovative techniques in it, Frank Miller story art. It's basically, if you're a Batman fan, which I am a diehard Batman fan, so this is like the one that you have to have from the 1980s. So how my story kind of ended up, doing some research, learning about how iconic it was, looked on eBay like shortly after. Within the first few couple days, one sold for $900 Canadian, and that's putting it about $670 US. And I think that's a really good price. If you can, you know, find this issue for $670 or $650, you know, anywhere in that range, I think you're getting a really good deal for this book. So what I ended up paying was what was it, 850 US dollars, which is going to put it just over 1,100 Canadian dollars. And so I did purchase it as a buy it now. And I think when you're purchasing buy it now, you know, most of those prices are going to be like full retail prices, which kind of a small reason that makes it a little bit less embarrassing for me maybe is because I live in Canada, I'm not too crazy about bringing over like really expensive comic books over the border. They usually rip open the package to see what it is, which can possibly damage it. And then, yeah, you're getting about a 10% border fee or tariff or whatever they're doing. So at the door, you have to pay that. So in general, if a comic book is in Canada, which I did buy this one within Canada, I'm willing to maybe pay a little bit extra just to like not have it over the border and feel good about it. You know, it's not going to be damaged in the package or anything. And that's sort of what kind of happened with this one. Although even that, I still paid an extra $100 that I didn't want to. You know, and even, you know, since I purchased this one, there's been a couple sales for $700. There's been, I think I saw one for like about that $670 range again. That's getting like about 900 Canadian. So there's been 3 or 4 that have sold for about $150 to $200 less than what I paid for this, which is a bit disappointing, I would say. And, you know, being at that time, you know, I probably only had about 5 or 10 CGC books at that time. So I was, you know, basically a noob. This was like one of the first issues where I was, you know, looking to spend like $900 to $1,000 on one comic book. So that, you know, that kind of got some getting used to. And I think because I didn't jump on that one that, you know, sold for a really good price, and there was like this one and another one in the States, so there was only 2 of them on eBay at that time. So I just ended up grabbing this one, and it's a really nice copy. Yeah, it's pretty much pristine. It's got a really good centering too. A lot of them, you can see kind of the white pages popping out of the side, and you know that doesn't look that aesthetically pleasing, but this one's quite aesthetically pleasing and a really nice copy, so got kind of lucky with that. But yeah, definitely a bit of, I would say, yeah, $150 to $200 overpay. And I think the lesson to be learned here is like, that's sort of how you don't want to go buying and investing in comic books, is, you know, getting really excited, and after you either read something or saw a trailer or saw a movie or whatever other pop culture event, and then you get really excited and you go on eBay right away and you're looking to just buy within the next week or two kind of thing. Whereas, you know, to get a really good deal in any kind of investment, it always usually pays to be patient. And unfortunately with this issue, I wasn't that patient just because I was so excited after doing a lot of that research. And yeah, so this time it wasn't really like I saw a trailer or a movie. It was just doing the research, getting really excited, seeing that there was only like 2 of them on eBay, only 1 in Canada. And I thought, being a bit of a newbie at that point, I didn't think, you know, who knows, and another one might not pop up for another 6 months or a year, and I wasn't really wanting to wait that long. But again, if you are patient, I think it was maybe about a month and a half to 2 months later, one did pop up that, and I think it ended up selling for like 950 Canadian, so that's put in about 700 American, and yeah, again, paid about 850 for this one. So yeah, I would say basically about $150 overpay on this issue. And yeah, if you had a look at one of my other videos with the Amazing Spider-Man 300, I sort of did a similar mistake where I watched the trailer for the Venom video, I got really excited, went on eBay, started looking at all the prices, and there was only 1 or 2, actually there was 0 on eBay for like a couple weeks. And then Amazing Spider-Man 300 9.8 popped up, and it was in Canada too, which is another reason why I felt like I sort of had to overpay a little bit. because again, if as Amazing Spider-Man 300 being like a $2,500 Canadian comic, yeah, it's going to be about 10% border fees coming over the border, so you know, to pay another like $250, $300 at the door would be kind of annoying. Plus it's going to be ripped open and the border officials are going to do whatever they want with it. So yes, that's some of the reason why I did overpay for this book. But you know, looking at the market now, because I do think like if you're a Batman fan and you're comic book investing, you almost have to have this book. And you know, obviously budget permits. If you can't find it in the 9.8 white pages, personally I would just buy like a nice rough copy rather than buying like a 9.6 or a 9.4. Yeah, another issue too that is a decent CGC 9.8 that relates to this, if you're on a budget, is the Batman Spawn crossover. And that has Frank Miller and Todd McFarlane teaming up to do the story and cover art. And that's kind of a really cool book that's related to this if you're on a budget. I got my Spawn Batman crossover for like $110 US, I think it was, in the 9.8 white pages. So a lot less for that book. But yeah, this is such an iconic book. If you are looking to invest in comics and you're a Batman fan, you really want this one. So the market right now, I think you're in, it's a bit of a weird spot because I feel like there's a lot of Batman hype starting to build, and that's got a lot to do with the Joker movie coming out, and then there's like the Batman movie coming out after that, and obviously, like, if you haven't heard, like, Robert Pattinson has been announced as the new Batman. So yeah, right now there just seems to be a lot of media and content being created about Batman, which I think is causing a little bit of hype. And yeah, right now it's possible that right now you might not want to look at buying this book, but at the same time, there's usually always, it's not like there's euphoric hype right now. Like, the movie hasn't come out yet and it didn't get rave reviews and like everyone's all about Batman. It's not that yet. So I think if you can possibly find like a 1 week auction on this where someone's just maybe trying to get rid of it, and you know, maybe they need you know, $600 or $700 pretty quick, and they're just going to throw it up as a 7-day auction, I think that would be a good opportunity to buy. But with the Batman movies coming out and a lot of the hype building, there's going to be collectors out there trying to get top dollar for their, and even more than top dollar, I would say, like inflated prices for this book with all the Batman movies coming out. So, you know, if you're kind of catching this video right as it's post, you still might have some time. But, you know, if the Joker movie already came out and the Batman movie's coming, and I could see this issue starting to get a little inflated. But even that, and actually I mentioned another wild card here, just being this is the first appearance of Carrie Kelly. And my sort of feeling on the whole thing is these movie studios, they're sort of on that bandwagon of like diversity and inclusion. And I think if they're going to include a Robin in any of upcoming Batman movies, I think it would be Carrie Kelly. So that could be a catalyst in the future. Yeah, I think if any Robin's going to be in a movie, it will likely be Carrie Kelly rather than Dick Grayson or Jason Todd. But so that, you know, that could be a bit of a catalyst. But I think if you're seeing this movie somewhat early from when it's posted, and the Batman movies haven't come out, I think, yeah, Batman the Dark Knight Returns #1 is so iconic. It's a must-own for, you know, a Batman collection, and if you're thinking about it from an investment perspective, you know, make sure you get the 9.8 white pages on this issue. Yeah, that's always what I recommend with 80s issues, 80s, 90s, and anything modern is, you know, go for the 9.8 white pages. And if you can't afford the 9.8 white pages, just get like a rough copy, I would say, a nice rough one. Because I think the 9.4s and 9.6s, they likely will not appreciate, because I think collectors, it's like you're either, you're a collector and all you want is the best, so you're going to want the 9.8 white pages, or you're a collector and, you know, you just collect raw comics and you want a nice copy, whether it's a 9.2 or 9.4 ungraded raw copy. So that's how I would go about investing in this issue. Yeah, like if your budget permits, like if you could buy one 9.8 or like maybe two 9.4s and a 9.6, like just go and buy the one 9.8, because I think over time, on the way out when you want to sell these, you're going to be able to get top dollar that way. So yeah, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns #1, probably the most iconic issue of the 80s with Batman, and maybe the most iconic issue of the 80s in all of comics, because it, like I said, it ushered in that modern era of comics with Frank Miller's sort of innovative art and story techniques. So it's a must-have, I think, for any comic book collector or investor. So yeah, I think in this environment with the new Batman movies coming out, hopefully you've seen this maybe in the first week of when the movie, or when this video is posted, and you could probably still find you know, a Dark Knight Returns #1 for a decent price. If not, they could be inflated, which, you know, I would just totally recommend to just be patient, wait, you know, maybe look for those 1 week auctions possibly, but you know, it's probably going to help you out if you just wait a year or two till, you know, after these movies calm down. Or, you know, maybe you're watching and it's sort of in between the Batman Joker and there's no, you know, real news right now, and maybe you could find a good one. Or maybe you could find a nice 9.8 for a decent price. But yeah, that's all for this video. Definitely wanted to show you my Dark Knight's Return. It's one of my like favorite issues, and it's one of those issues you just take out and like look at it for, you know, 10 minutes and just nerd out. So if you like what you see, please subscribe to the channel. I got a lot more of my key issues, a lot more of my collection here, and a lot of ideas and title ideas that I have written down, and can't wait to kind of make those videos too. So there'll be a lot more content coming up. So thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next video.